purpose of this session is to discuss the new features in Vicinity for quality entry. The QC test result entry screen has been completely reworked from version 2 to version 4. We're taking more of a sample tracking approach than, say, maybe an end test result. So for example, in version 2, we spent a fair amount of time giving the user the opportunity to enter the final test results against a lot, raw material lot, or a batch. In version 4, instead, we've taken more of the approach of a sample is taken from a raw material lot or a batch or a process and bring it into the lab and be able to track that specific sample through all the tests that it went through. And then if there's another test, if there's another sample that's drawn from that source, it would get a new sample ID and it would be tracked independently from the first sample. Let me go through some of that with you. First off, on this screen, you'll find consistent in version 4 is the usage of the ribbon bar. You'll see that on all screens. You'll also see that taken over into Microsoft Office as well as Microsoft Dynamics. So this is an area in which the user can do certain activities. It allows the developers, it allows Vicinity to put key activities up in this ribbon bar so they're always available to you. On a screen-by-screen basis, the ribbon bar will look slightly different. Additionally, one of the big things that we've added in kind of QC test results is we've added the ability to enter QC tests for the entire batch. In other words, add all the tests that you've got throughout the life of the batch or for just a batch operation. In version 2, we certainly showed you the QC by operation and kind of thought that's how you would want to enter it. There are times in which people want the QC test through the process, but at the end of the batch they want to do all of the tests, say an entire panel of all of the tests. So you've got either way. You can either do QC tests against the batch and that adds up all the QC tests, or by just a batch operation. We've always had component lot. That's consistent with what we did in version 2. What we're talking about here is a raw material receipt. Say in Dynamics you do a PO receipt, put a lot number on hand, and then you can do QC tests against that raw material lot. We also added the ability to do QC tests against a process unit. In Vicinity terms, a process unit is a piece of equipment. So we're talking now about QC tests against a vessel or a machine. Those may be cleanup type tests to document what you did on cleanup. It could also be tests that are performed for items that aren't necessarily lot tracked, but you want to be able to do QC tests at a certain time period. You might be doing things like ambient temperature. It may be a test on product going through that piece of equipment, but it's not lot tracked itself, and you just want to know what run speeds are or a certain pH value or something like that at that time. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to be able to tie QC tests to it. We're also planning to add other processes or other ways to do QC tests as version 4 grows a bit more. I'm going to go ahead and select batch operation. So what we're going to do is pick, this is a situation where a sample has been brought into the lab for one of the operations. Let's say we added the raw materials to a mixer and it's been mixing around, but we haven't processed it any further yet. We can provide a sample number if we want to, but Vicinity is designed to give a unique sample number to this sample being brought into the lab. I can select my facility, and specifically I'm actually going toward a batch ticket. So I'm going to go and pick up my batch number. Let me go ahead and just pick up a standard formula that I work with quite often. Now it's asking me, where am I in the process? In other words, which QC test do you want me to pick up? From what operation in that batch ticket do you want me to pick up the QC tests? So what just happened is I picked up that operation, and we'll go look at these tests. Now before we get too much further, remember that in version 4 we come off of a tab metaphor and go to a collapsible section. So we've got 4 sections listed here on QC tests. I'm going to just open up the tests, and this is where we're seeing those 4 QC tests that were defined against this operation on this batch. Here are the tests that we want to run. Here are the procedures, in other words, the instructions on how to run the test. And then I've also got my place for results here, and also notes if I want to make kind of unlimited lines of notes. in this version, it's more kind of Excel data entry oriented, where we've got columns and rows. So in this case, I can actually come in and enter my test results, and then down arrow coming to the next, viscosity, volatility, etc., density. And I can enter all of my results here going right down the line. So that's basically my test entry. We also have got country of origin. So in this case, if it were a raw material lot, this is where you can define what countries are represented in this lot that we've received. And we've also got quality sample documents. This is the same thing as external documents. So if you've got a PDF, an image, a Word file, whatever, that you want to attach to this sample, it could be a readout from a piece of equipment that can be attached as an external document to this individual sample. And then another big addition that we added in version 4 is the ability to assign corrective action during QC entry. So if a test fails to the point that we want production to do something, add a raw material, process further, we can actually apply that or subscribe that here from QC entry. So in this case, I can say add an ingredient. We can tell whether it's been added yet, or we're just telling them to add it. Gives a date and time stamp. And then I can also put in my component ID. In this case, I can just type in part of the ID, as you've seen in lookups throughout Vicinity 4. I just typed in acid. It showed me any item that's got acid in its description or item, and it brings back that part. I can then tell them how many pounds, and I can also give a description or instructions associated with it. Now, that corrective action can be an ingredient. This will automatically show up on the batch ticket. So in batch entry, I will see a separate section on the batch ticket for QC adds. Additionally, I can add instructions. So these are basically free-form instructions to enter as you would want to show on a corrective action document, maybe a sheet that goes out to the floor telling them what to do. So batch corrective actions is a big change, a big addition that we've added into version 4. So the last thing I need to do is just save this batch. Save this sample. This sample has now been entered. The workflow as we see it is production takes a sample, brings it into the lab, and simply tells it where is this coming from. It's coming from this batch, maybe this operation, and hits save. And then somebody else comes into this sample, the lab technician comes into this sample and records the QC tests, and then also maybe prescribes corrective action. At which point the corrective action takes place in production, and another sample comes in, allowing them to go through the same process again, providing a new sample number for the exact same the exact same operation and the exact same batch. So you could just continue this process until it actually passes QC, keeping track of all samples, how many times it went through the batch, process, through production. I just hit save, and now I've got another sample number. So we hope this helps. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give us a ring, and make sure to put on your calendar focus, which is always in May in the Atlanta area. So we look forward to talking with you.